Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Single best idea, huge news flow going on. We're going to keep this wicked short today. What a great set of guests in today. Alicia Monell with us from Boston College. She is retiring from what she invented, the Center for Retirement Research. Absolutely iconic on thinking about the failure of the American retirement system. What an honor to speak to Professor Monell. Also in today, David Salem from Hedgeye, really quite scathing on alternative investments. How do you account for them? What does the future look like for the illiquidity of alternative investments? Jim Caron in on the dynamics of the bond market. Caron with too much equity talk. I was surprised by that. With Morgan Stanley, Jim Caron on the Fed.
This is one of the things that the Fed has to worry about, is that we're getting these numbers like 0.2, 0.3% month over month in inflation. We need to start getting 0.1s. And that's the issue here, because essentially we need to get not just down to that target level, but we have to believe that we're going to stay there. It has to be durable, meaning that the way the Fed would say it is that not only does inflation have to come down, but it has to stay anchored at lower levels. And look, today's number is a friendly number in the sense that it did bring down yields. It didn't surprise to the upside. I think the markets were worried about that. Effectively, this keeps the Fed on track to cutting interest rates in December. Jim Caron of Morgan Stanley, of course, a conversation with Neil Kashkari, Michael McKee, and John Farrow with that. That was interesting, to say the least. And an important conversation in the last 24 hours, Sonali Basak with Jane Fraser of Citigroup. My most important conversation was with Richard Haass, the former ambassador, all of his work with Northern Ireland years ago, of course, the modern Council on Foreign Relations. He's now emeritus there, and with Centerview Partners. Richard Haass on the new tightness of the American system. Richard Haass on our parliamentary approach.
For the first time in modern memory, we've become effectively a parliamentary system. You've got one party, indeed one individual, with the lion's share of control, the White House, the Senate, the House, and Supreme Court that tilts that way. So we no longer really have checks and balances to a significant degree at the federal level. So the real question is, how does this president, how does this administration comport itself? Does it respect any limits? Yes, they won the election, but 49% of America voted against them. And the real question is, does our system work with this degree of concentration of power? And what makes me a little bit uneasy, Tom, is we're beginning to see some, how would I call it, extra institutional things. For example, this potential board of military people to look at the political orientation of the generals, or what Elon Musk and Vivek are being asked to do. Possibly also a trade czar position. What's interesting about all these things, you're giving people authority, but they're not really accountable, and that makes me uneasy.
Richard Haass with Centerview Partners there, blistering. I can't say enough about his book. You want a short book to throw at the brats? You've got college kids, they're living at home. High school kids, smart and acute. Give them a civics lesson. Richard Haass's The Bill of Obligations is a spectacular 100-page read. We're out on YouTube. Subscribe to Bloomberg Podcast, growing each day on YouTube. Ken, somebody, Peter Kafka over at Business Insider, said it was the YouTube election. I don't know if it was or not. All I know is YouTube's growing each and every day. We are on our podcast, YouTube podcast, Apple Podcasts, Single Best Idea.